Harry Potter may be a world filled with magic and adventure, but behind the spells and the battles, there are stories that are deeply heartbreaking. Today, we're going to explore 7 of the saddest facts in the entire series, some you might not even know. So grab a tissue because this one's going to hurt. Let's start with a character that many fans may have forgotten about, but whose death is one of the most tragic in the series, Colin Creevey. Remember him? He was that overly excited Gryffindor kid with the camera, always eager to capture every magical moment, especially anything Harry Potter did. But what most people don't realize is that Colin was one of the many students who fought in the Battle of Hogwarts. Despite being underage, Colin snuck back into Hogwarts to join the fight. His death is only briefly mentioned in the books, but never shown in the films. Imagine being so young, full of life and admiration for your hero, and then giving your life in the battle for a world that didn't even see you as old enough to fight. Colin died as a hero, but his story is a reminder of the youth that was lost in the war against Voldemort. Another fact that not everyone knows involves a heart-wrenching decision Dumbledore had to make. In The Half-Blood Prince, we learn that Dumbledore was already dying before he asked Snape to kill him. But what makes it even sadder is why he was dying. When Dumbledore put on Marvolo Gaunt's cursed ring, he knew it would slowly kill him. But he did it anyway because in that moment he couldn't resist the temptation of the Resurrection Stone, hoping to see his dead family again. Ariana, his little sister, who he felt so responsible for. That moment shows Dumbledore's humanity in a way we don't often see. Even the greatest wizard of his time wasn't immune to the pain of grief and the desire to turn back time. Knowing he was already condemned to die makes his choices throughout the series even more impactful. He wasn't just fighting a war, he was carrying the weight of his own mortality and his deepest regrets. Remus Lupin is another character who faced constant heartbreak. As a werewolf, Lupin was shunned by society, living in isolation and battling his own self-loathing. Even in a world filled with magical creatures, Lupin was treated as a second-class citizen, never fully accepted by anyone outside his closest circle of friends. When he found love and started a family with Tonks, it seemed like he might finally have his happy ending. But, like so many others, Lupin was taken during the Battle of Hogwarts, leaving behind his son, Teddy, an orphan. Lupin's life was defined by loneliness and loss, and in the end, his fate mirrored Harry's in the most tragic way possible. Another child left without parents, another cycle of heartbreak repeating itself. Neville Longbottom's story is perhaps one of the most quietly tragic in the series. We all remember his bravery during the Battle of Hogwarts, but what's often forgotten is the burden he carried throughout his life. Neville's parents, Frank and Alice Longbottom, were tortured into insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange. While they survived, their minds were destroyed, leaving Neville to visit them in St. Mungo's Hospital, knowing they didn't even recognize him. Neville grew up with the weight of his parents' sacrifice, but unlike Harry, he didn't lose them to death. He lost them to something worse. The pain of seeing his parents physically present but mentally gone is a tragedy that shapes Neville's courage and resilience, but it's a tragedy nonetheless. Here's a fact that's not directly tied to the story of Harry Potter, but it's one of the most emotional connections between the books and the real world. J.K. Rowling named one of her characters after a real-life fan, Natalie MacDonald. Natalie was a young girl suffering from terminal leukemia, and before she passed away, she wrote to Rowling asking what would happen in the next book. Unfortunately, Natalie died before she got her answer, but Rowling honoured her by making her a Gryffindor student in Goblet of Fire. It's a touching tribute that shows just how much Rowling's world means to her fans, and how much her fans meant to her. Even in the midst of a magical world, real-world tragedies leave their mark. Hedwig's death in Deathly Hallows is another moment that hit fans hard. For Harry, Hedwig was more than just a pet. She was his first real connection to the wizarding world, his first taste of freedom from the Dursleys. When Hedwig died, it wasn't just the loss of a beloved companion, it was the symbolic end of Harry's childhood. That moment marked a turning point in the story, when everything became darker and more dangerous. It was the moment Harry had to leave behind the last remnants of his innocence and step fully into the fight against Voldemort. And finally, we come to Severus Snape. For years, Snape was seen as the villain, the teacher who made Harry's life miserable, the man who killed Dumbledore. But in the end, we learn that Snape's actions were driven by his undying love for Lily Potter. Even after her death, Snape dedicated his life to protecting Harry, not out of love for the boy, but because of his love for Lily. Snape's entire life was shaped by a love he could never have, and he died without ever finding peace. His story is one of the most complex and tragic in the series, and it leaves us questioning whether Snape was truly a hero or just another victim of a world torn apart by war. Each of these stories shows us that the magic of Harry Potter isn't just about spells and wands. It's about the human experience. Loss, grief, sacrifice, they're all part of the wizarding world. And maybe that's what makes it so powerful. It reflects the pain and love we all feel, even in a world of magic. Before we wrap up, if you've enjoyed this deep dive into the wizarding world and want more Harry Potter content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an update as we explore even more secrets and stories from the wizarding world. And if you want to support the channel, don't forget to like the video, it really helps. Thanks for watching.